Praise be to Jesus. Hi again, everyone. Charles here. Well, it's really a busy day for me here. I'm going to start, I think this is the first of two videos that I'm going to talk about Catholic ministry. And if you're interested in beginning a Catholic ministry or growing the beginning of a Catholic ministry, I'd like to give you my thoughts on this. And of course, you know, they're my own personal thoughts about my own experiences. They certainly don't encompass all that there is to whether God is going to promote your desire to begin or to evolve or grow a Catholic ministry that he has begun with you. So there are two things that I want to talk about. Now in this video, I'm just going to talk about one of them because I want to keep the video short. And so I'm going to talk about humility. Okay, so now humility is a virtue that this virtue is not something you either have or don't have. Like many other virtues, humility is a matter of degree. In other words, for as long as we live, we need to grow in humility, to conform ourselves to the one and only person, both human and divine, Jesus Christ, who is the perfection of humility. So, there's a lot of, I'm sure there are just as many people as there are in the world. God grows humility in a person in their own very specific way that's, very specific to that person. But I'll talk to you a little bit about how God grew humility in me. I'm sure in very many different ways, but one way I particularly recognize, and perhaps, this may or may not help you, but, I sort of feel a need to talk about this. So several years ago, I'm not sure exactly how this came about. At the time, I was doing a sort of takeoff on, I can't remember what you call it. It escapes me right now. But what I would do is make the sign of the cross, and with my eyes closed, open up the Bible to just a random page, run my finger across it, and then just stop and read, the first sentence or two, and see if God was talking to me. And I think, if I remember correctly, now this is several years ago, so if I remember correctly, what God was telling me, and I'm not sure exactly if these words were in the Bible, probably not. Or maybe this story I'm telling you here isn't really correct. But anyway, let me get to the bottom line here. So, Father gave to me this word, and it was very simple but very profound. Okay, here's the word: points of reality. Points of reality. All right. So points being plural, and I've thought about this on and off for several years, and it's really very profound. Points of reality. Okay. So reality, I assume he's talking about, our reality. So I should have done this before. In points here. You're going to have to hang with me for a minute here because I'm just talking off the top of my head. P-O-I-N-T. Okay, what's a point? All right, all right, here. let's see here. Well, here we need to probably put up. All right, here we have to go to, we have to get rather technical here. All right, so here's what I wanted to drive at. So, to us, what is a point? So, we could take a very sharp pencil and put a little point on the piece of paper. And, of course, that point has dimension to it, But, theoretically in mathematics, a point in geometry is a location. It has no size, therefore no width, no length, and no depth. A point is shown by a dot. A line is defined as a line of points that extend. All right. So, a point really doesn't have any dimension to it. All right. Excuse me. But, here's Father talking about points of reality. So I think what he's telling me is to think, very small. So I'm thinking of like an atom, Of course, inside an atom are subatomic particles like protons and electrons, quarks, and a bunch of other things they think, Of course, you can actually look up on the internet a video that'll show you atoms, and they're all like neatly lined up. But, you can't see inside the atom to see what's in there, what's inside the atom. And that's because of something called the electron cloud, where the electrons around the atom are moving around so quickly, they create like a cloud over what's inside. So, no one's ever seen what's inside an atom. So we don't really know. But anyway, so if we take a point as just an atom, all right, so Father's talking about points of reality. In other words, all, for all practical purposes, Father is talking about all the atoms in the universe, all right, that, that he keeps track of, past, present, and future. Now, you think about that, and I'm going to go and look this up. All right, you think about all the atoms in the universe. And I'm going to say, how many? All right. So here we go. Here. This is where we want to go. Okay. All right. Here. Well, we have some kind of answer from Google here. All right. So, so how many atoms are in the universe? All right, there are about, now this is, obviously what we know, There are about 10 billion galaxies in the observable universe. Of course, that's the observable universe. The number of stars in a galaxy varies, but assuming an average of 100 billion stars per galaxy means there are about, okay, so they have this number here, lots of zeros, obviously. That's 1 billion trillion stars in the observable universe. How many stars in the universe, 2017? All right, this says 1,000 million stars in the Milky Way alone. All right, how many grains of sand are there in the world? Okay, well, there's probably more stars than grains of sand in the world. Let me see what this says. Our Milky Way is home to around 300 billion stars. Well, anyway, you get the idea here. So, can you imagine how small an atom is? And when you start thinking about, even your own finger, how many atoms are in your own finger? And so it's like, when you think about this, you don't have to think about it very long, obviously, but then you go, whoa, and when the Bible says, I'm just going to paraphrase here, when God talks about, your life is a wisp of smoke and, you're here, and then you're gone, or, being a blade of grass that withers when the sun goes down or whatever. I mean, we're basically nothing. If you really want to know, you really want to hear about what God has to say, read about the book of Job. Read in the book of Job where he says, "Where were you when I did this and I did that?" And it's like, well, Lord, and then you start thinking about, you being, a creation of God. As a side note here, I'd like to bring up, I heard about this. Maria Divine Mercy, one of her messages actually said this, and I've heard about this in other places, that after God creates a soul, he gives the soul a choice to the kind of life they want to lead, what kind of life they want, whether it be worldly or holy or something in between, or, what the specifics are. I've never read anything about the specifics, but I always thought that was really interesting also. There's so much mystery with God, it's really amazing. If I don't know what it would bring for, you, or even myself to, get deeper into humility. Pride forms in, manifests itself in many different ways in our lives, and it's sometimes, we could say, I sometimes catch myself and go, now, am I being prideful here? What's my motivation for saying this? All right, let's say I'm, responding to something on the internet, on Facebook or Twitter or something or whatever. What is my motivation here? And, I could tell myself something, and then, 20 minutes later, it'd be like, oops, and I question myself, was that really, did I really need to say that? Was that really, was I really trying to help the person, or, so pride is a very difficult, it's not only difficult to notice, it just pops up in many ways in our life. And I think as long as we're, aware of our pride and how it manifests itself in our lives, and we sort of are aware of that in the present moment, and we try to do better with it, then, really, that's really all God asks of us, so there's a lot of different ways for, to come to know, not only who God is, but, God is so much more than even what we know. We know actually so little about God. Of course, we know what we need to know. God's made sure that we know what we need to know to save ourselves. And, we know that he calls us to help him save others. He's written us into his plan, that we can take part in this, which is a wonderful thing, but it's, humility is something, that is very much a part of having, a ministry. If you're really interested in, in a ministry, now, you're probably going to have absolutely no idea what this ministry is. This ministry is something that God has preordained for you. We're all called to ministry. Now, you could say, oh, well, I work, so, I can't have a full-time ministry. But yet you can have a part-time ministry. And God knows exactly what that is for you if you respond to him. Now, the first part of responding is to realize that, you yourself cannot create this ministry. this is a ministry that God knows, because he knows past, present, and future. He knows if you're going to say at some point in time, Lord, I'd like to give you this time in my day, let's say the evenings, all right, to build a ministry, whatever that might be. And, God will give you this ministry, take advantage of the fact, in other words, take advantage of the fact in terms of, he's going to give you this opportunity to help your brothers and sisters, which is going to help him save souls, because that's what God cares about. So, if that's all what you have to offer, then, he can use you in whatever capacity you want to offer to him. The main thing here is that, you put the whole concept of this ministry, wanting this ministry, the first thing you have to do is create time for this ministry. And you can only do that if you free up time and get yourself out of the world. Now, if you have a regular job, there have been people who say, Lord, I want a ministry. I'm quitting my job today. And I'm going to sit home and pray and adore and love you until you give me a ministry. Now, of course, there haven't been many of them, but I'm willing to bet you, anything, whatever that might be, that, God gave him a ministry. Because God knows that this was going to happen, and this is very pleasing to God. So, if you got the guts to quit your job and say, Lord, I don't have children to raise, even though I'm married, I might be a little older now, I have time, I can quit my job, I might run into financial difficulty, but I trust in your providence to take care of me. You see, it's like, where are you, what is it you want to do? Do you really want a ministry? If you really want a ministry, God will give it to you. Believe me, God will give it to you. And he doesn't care about, whether you are a good reader or whether you're, what your deficiencies are. Excuse me. He's going to make use of you because he's got a ministry for all of us. It's just amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. So, it depends on what you want. If you, want to be a grandmother to your children, this is important too. I'm not saying that what you're doing in your life is unimportant. I'm just saying, if you really want a ministry, if you're really, to what extent are you willing to go there to get that ministry? Because there's nothing that you're going to do that's going to surprise God. All you're going to do, if you really get radical about it, is put a smile on God's face, and he's going to make it happen. And in the meantime, while he's developing this through you, he's going to let you know what you need to do. He's going to take care of all your physical needs. I know, I've been through all this. I know what all this is. And I'm not, I'm not an example of something that's out of the ordinary. I'm a very, I'm an example of what happens when a person tells God, I want a ministry, and I'm willing to do whatever it is in obedience to get that ministry. Now, I know this is not going to involve a lot of you, or, maybe some of you might think this is interesting or whatever, and, you might want to, take it a little further. Maybe you're not ready to give up your family and your friends. I have. I've given up my family and my friends. I'm basically a hermit. You didn't know that, but, I'm telling you now. So I work for God 24/7. I get up in the middle of the night because I guess my guardian angel gets me up to do something on the internet or to pray or whatever. You know, so a full-time ministry, you have to be available 24/7. But there are other kinds of ministries, and whatever God has called you to, you can develop that further. This is what my point is. You want to go further with that, okay? And it usually is going to involve managing your time in a different way, you know, in a way that gives more time to the ministry part and less time to the world. Now, if you're willing to do that, and you tell God that, and you show him that, you know, let's say I'll just take some silly example, like you watch TV 2 hours a night. If you're willing to give up those 2 hours, you know, I'm not saying tomorrow, you know, I mean, you know, God's going to like all of a sudden fill that. But, you know, you pray, you know, you might want to go to adoration. You say, Lord, I've given up a couple of hours of the world here to serve you. Would you please fill this time so I can help my brothers and sisters and help you save more souls? Okay? You know, if you're willing to do that, it's not going to be long before God either fills that 2 hours, or he's going to let you know what you need to do, okay, that you're like a little bit too far away. He's going to explain to you what step or steps you need to take in order for him to be able to fulfill that. All right, so, you know, I mean, all this can be very exciting. You know, it's like new and open territory that you can explore, you know, that has eternal consequences for your own soul, for the souls of your brothers and sisters, to bring glory to God. I mean, it's great stuff. It's great stuff. Let's stop being caught up in the day-to-day living that we live and start living for God. And that's what I'd like to say in this video. And God bless you all. And I hope I've reached someone. Enjoy your day or evening, and we'll talk to you next time.